Let's look at some of the different types of books that children with autism might enjoy reading and be able to manage. Many children with autism have difficulty with reading for meaning, and this means that they are poor comprehenders. The stereotypical picture you might have is of a child who reads well but fails to understand what he is reading. So whilst word reading skills are close to the average range, reading comprehension skills typically fall below the average range. Children with dyslexia would struggle with the word level aspects of reading, which relate to phonological decoding, but on the other hand, their ability to comprehend what they read is relatively good. But poor comprehenders, on the other hand, such as children with autism, are able to read text fluently, are able to decode accurately, but they have difficulty understanding the overall meaning of longer sentences and paragraphs. Some children with autism are hyperlexic, and this means that their ability to decode words is quite high, significantly higher than their peers. However, their ability to decode words is actually greater than their ability to comprehend what they are reading. So children who are hyperlexic would experience the same comprehension difficulties. Children with autism who have poor reading comprehension skills tend to also have poor oral comprehension when they are listening or talking to others. Why do some children not understand what they are reading? So there are various reasons for not being able to understand what is being read. In autistic children, one of the most common reasons that a child does not understand what he is reading is because he is reading at a level that is above his current level of comprehension. So for example, if you have a child who is 10 years of age, and let's say this child is at a comprehension level of a 6-year-old, then it would not be appropriate for this child to be reading books suitable for ages 10 to 12, for example. He would be better served by reading books in the age range of, say, 5 to 7-year-olds, and this is the way in which his reading abilities will tend to improve. So there are books that do not have any words in them, books without words. And this is a good option for children who are not reading as yet, children who are quite young, and also children who have developmental delays. Books without words have the ability to tell a story with a sequence of illustrations. And they are great for language development as they actually encourage children to use words to be able to tell the story as opposed to the conventional way, which is to read a sentence. So a parent or an adult who has a book that has no words in it can tell the entire story to the child while the child is listening, or the parent could tell parts of the story and then encourage the child to tell the other parts. So in other words, this is joint storytelling. Because children with autism are visual learners, they will benefit by the use of books without words, especially if they are not reading as yet. Books which would have clear, bright illustrations showing a sequence of events is actually a good reading option for a child with autism who is not reading as yet. Here's an example of Sam, for instance. Let's call him Sam. Is going outside to pick vegetables from his garden, and we then tell the story of how his basket is full. He then goes into his little house, cozy house. He washes his vegetables at his tap, and then he starts to chop up the vegetables in order to make a meal. For children who have just started reading, go for very easy reads with lots of bright, interesting illustrations. These kinds of books would have simple stories with only one line reads per illustrated page. And you should choose stories that your child will relate to, will find interesting, which connect to his own personal experiences. And remember that in order for your child to keep reading, Books have to be well illustrated in the beginning. They have to be interesting to your child, and most importantly, they have to be at a level that he will be able to understand. Books with rhymes and other rhythmic elements, including songs, can be very enjoyable for children to read. Here's one example: The Bug in the Jug Wants a Hug. These kinds of books can encourage children to learn and repeat words or phrases that appeal to them in terms of the sound of these words. This will happen even if they are not able to read the words, that they are based on listening to what you are reading to them, and in time they may learn to decode these words. Books with repetitive elements can also be enjoyable for children with autism. In these books, you will have a phrase that is being repeated, say in each page, but the ending of the phrase will change from page to page. So if you take Old MacDonald had a farm, for instance, it would be, on this farm he had some ducks, and in the next line, in the next page, on this farm he had some cows, and so on. So it's the repetitive element of what animals are on the farm, and it would then be for the child to fill in the gap, explaining what is found on the farm. So there's an element of predictability in these types of books that children with autism might like and in fact find quite comforting. If your child is not reading or has not learned to phonetically sound out words, consider using books or flashcards that will help your child to begin to sight read. Sight reading is when your child identifies and reads a word as a whole rather than by sounding it out. So for example, the is a word that your child will sight read. He will not sound it out. Here is a link to a website that lists quite a few good books that can be used, which include many sight words. Here's an example of such a book, Dr. Seuss' 100 First Words. And I've also included for reference what is referred to as the Dolch word list. And this is a list of commonly encountered sight words or words for sight reading in different stages of learning: pre-primary, first grade, second grade, and third grade. And so you could consider taking these lists and making flashcards for each word, and using them to teach your child these sight words. Some books have textures in them which children could enjoy touching while they are reading or while others are reading to them. Textures like rough, soft, smooth add a dimension to reading that children with autism can find interesting and also comforting. Here's an example: Never Touch a Monster, which you could see it has some sensory touch elements in it. Here's the brush on the cover. And these books can make for quite an enjoyable reading experience. Then you can also have pop-up books, which can also be fun. Children with autism are unlikely to become bored by reading a book repeatedly, even if it is a pop-up book, provided of course that it is the type of subject matter that they find enjoyable. Now, many children with autism do struggle with books of fantasy, fairy tales, or plots that involve many imaginary or magic elements. They will tend to prefer what is concrete, as this tends to be practical and easier for them to understand, and this means that non-fiction is a definite option for them. Non-fiction is also a way for them to learn many things about the world. It is a way of gaining knowledge on many different topics, something which will then broaden the understanding of children, both socially and academically. Of course, I'm not saying that there are children with autism who do not enjoy fantasy. There are many who do, but I'm just referring to a general trend that you will find, and which is just that there are issues of understanding relating to fantasy which might be problematic, and that non-fiction tends to be a very popular choice for children with autism. Many children with autism have what is called a special interest, and so it might be a good idea to try to find books that relate to your child's special interest. These books could be fiction or they could be non-fiction, and also your child's interests will change over time. So maybe as a child they might, as a small child they might enjoy books about dinosaurs, but later on they might enjoy books about transport. So try to get books that match your child's special interest at a particular point in time, but also make sure that these books will match your child's reading abilities. So for instance, if your child likes trucks, it's not going to be a good idea to get a book that is very technical and explains all the parts of a truck and how a truck works, but it might be interesting to get a book that shows all the different types of trucks and the places that the trucks would go. Examples of special interest books could be, topics like dinosaurs, the planets, trains, animals, vehicles, cooking, baking, and many more. The truth is that as we sit now in 2023, there are just thousands of books available. They are available as a paper format. They are available online. If we wanted to read or we wanted to encourage our children to read, there's just no lack of resources. The internet is flooded with books currently. Many of the websites contain books for reading that offer free resources and some element of a paid subscription maybe, but many items in these websites are actually accessible for free. YouTube currently has many channels where teachers and parents read books in video format for children to listen to or to read along. Starfall at www.starfall.com is an excellent website that contains many books for free reading. There is an option of a subscription, but then many of the books are in fact free. So your child could use Starfall to follow the words, look at the picture on screen, and also listen to the story because it has an audio as well as the visual. So this site includes resources not just for reading, but also for learning the alphabet, for learning to phonetically sound words, and then also learning to read. So it's a great option for children who are starting to read. In my next slide, I'm going to include a list of some resources, that you can access on the internet. So here are some links to online resources, and as I've said, there's tons of resources online. And what I would recommend is that you spend some time looking through these sites and sites that you may find on your own and channels that you think would suit and be of interest to your child. If possible, use library resources in your area, as this is a free and readily available resource. Take your child to the library. This should be done regularly, at least once a month. Explain to the librarian that your child has a disability and may be choosing books that do not match his chronological age. You don't owe anyone an explanation, but doing this might make things easier for you and your child. Prepare your child for the library by explaining about how to handle books, how to put them back, how about being quiet in the library, and so on, and use visuals as needed to explain things. Here are some of the materials and books that my daughter enjoyed reading. She is now a young adult. So online newspapers, for example, News 24. She doesn't understand opinion pieces or political commentary, but she does enjoy reading general news items. Also, she likes articles about food and health, articles about celebrities and other entertainers. She prefers reading local news and reads only a little of the international news. Then she likes to Google and read up on an item that interests her or that she wants to learn more about. So she, for example, reads up frequently about different places, about animals, food, recipes, technology, entertainment, And if she hears about something on TV or online that she wants to learn more about, for example, let's say an earthquake, she will go onto the internet and read up about it. Then she also likes books about animals, especially dogs. One of her favorites is encyclopedias for dog breeds, where she spends hours poring over the books, over the breeds and reading about each type of dog. As a child and as a teen, she loved the books by Roald Dahl and also the books of Kate DiCamillo. She enjoyed the Roald Dahl characters very much, how some of them were mean and nasty and not always good or perfect. That was something she found interesting. Then she does read teen novels, but she doesn't understand all of the book, especially if she's reading it independently. She will only understand some parts of what she is reading. Then she also enjoys reading books about art and craft activities where she will get ideas to create certain things. The important thing is to keep reading to your child, or to encourage them to read if they are able to read, either with you or by themselves. It's unlikely that they will reach the reading abilities of their peers, but they need to continue to learn about the world, and reading is obviously one of the most important ways for them to learn. So I wish you luck in your endeavors to keep your child along this road of reading and learning.